Last Sunday at SoFi, the Rams just couldn't seem to keep up with the Eagles in the second half.
They motion to empty. Stafford calls for the snap. He needs 12 yards on fourth down. Instead, he's decked and sacked. And Hassan Reddick wins it for Philadelphia with a sack.
Now for Week 6, it's time for an NFC West matchup against gritty Arizona.
We are only 2 hours away from kickoff at the Palace in Inglewood as the Rams need to bounce back from last week's loss, move back to 500 at 3-3, and pick up a game in the division.
Hi, this is Coach Sean McVay. Whose house? Rams house.
Corona Extra Rams countdown to kickoff gets you ready right now.
The Corona Extra Rams countdown to kickoff.
Hi, this is Matthew Stafford of your Los Angeles Rams, the home of Rams football, 710 ESPN.
Corona Extra. Find the fine life. Live la vida más fina. Now, inside SoFi Stadium, with one of the fiercest linebackers to ever play the game, Kirk Morrison, here is your host, Travis Rogers.
At a very warm SoFi Stadium. It is a beautiful day here, Kirk. The sun is out, and we are very comfortable here in the shade, but it is going to be a warm one for Week 6 of the NFL season, Cardinals and Rams. And, Kirk, let's just start right here. Let's jump right into it.
Sure.
The idea of being 3-3 is about where I think a lot of people might have had this Rams team through 6 weeks of the season. Being 2-4 obviously would have a much different feel for what's coming up after this. Maybe not the sexiest matchup on the Rams' schedule this year, but this is an incredibly important game for them today.
I think this is the one must-win game that we've seen so far, right? I think after Indianapolis, yes, that's a must-win game. Today is a must-win game against the Arizona Cardinals because you look at even where the Rams are currently, you still feel like their roster is better than the roster in Arizona. So you say, look, if the Rams go out and win today, it's a much better picture for this football team going forward. As next week they'll have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then they got back-to-back road games. They've got to finish up this homestand.
Yeah, little three-game homestand.
Three-game homestand. To me, we're still learning this football team. We're 5 weeks into it, and I still don't know the identity of this team. I know some of the players who you depend on to win, but the identity of this team is still coming together, and I think that's why a game like today is so important against a division opponent.
It's weird because usually by, we're in the middle of October, you have a pretty good idea of what the team is. What do they do well? Or, where do they kind of fit in the rest of the conference, in the rest of the division? And I'm with you. I'm not so sure that I know because the team that's played the first half against San Francisco and Philadelphia, that's a really good team. The team that played the first half against Indianapolis, that's a really good team. The team that played the second half against Seattle, really good team. But the other halves of all of those games have not looked particularly good. And it's still trying to figure out exactly whether or not they can put two halves of football together and really look like a complete team.
Yeah, that's, I think, the game today is all about can they get 60 minutes in. The first 30 minutes always seem to look good. And yet, I should say the first 25 or 27, 28 minutes look pretty good. And it's the Rams' inability to close out first halves. And I think that's the hard part for the Rams right now is that they don't carry the momentum that they built the whole entire first half. And they don't bring it into the second half because of how they finish. So
what do you think is going on there? Why? What's happening?
Situational football. It's one thing to give up a 3 at the end of a half. Oh, they wouldn't got a 3 on us. But the Rams have given up touchdowns, right? The touchdown to Philadelphia, the touchdown to San Francisco. Those were game-changing plays. And they did it to where teams actually decided we'd rather go for 7 and 3. Think about it. It was fourth down situations, time not left on the clock type situations. And they were like, no, we know that scoring 7 against the Rams makes them a much different football team. And when I say much different is that we've talked about this before. The Rams have not played well with the lead. They have not played well with the lead. They play as if they're from behind all the time. And that's kind of what they have to do today. Come out, establish a lead, and be able to run the football, be able to close out, be able to handle situational football, which they just have not been good at over the first 5 games of the season.
Subaru of Glendale is driven by Subaru of Glendale. On the road, the #1 Subaru dealer in America. Find your next Subaru at Subaru of Glendale. The Cardinals came in here last season and beat the Rams. Correct. This is a matchup that, at least in the Cliff Kingsbury era, going back to Steve Wilkes and some other coaches that they've had here at Arizona, that Sean McVay has had a very good matchup against. However, this is an opportunity for Arizona to win back-to-back games here in SoFi for the first time. Why has this typically been such a good matchup for the Rams against the Arizona Cardinals?
Well, the Rams have always had an established culture with Sean McVay. So we're talking about the Sean McVay era against the Arizona Cardinals. We're not talking about the Rams previous with Jeff Fisher. Since the Rams have had Sean McVay, think about the players on the offense, though.
Sure.
Whether it was Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Braden Cooks, even Jared Goff, Todd Gurley. You know what I mean? Like Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, Tyler Higbee. We always seem to gloss over Tyler Higbee. Mm-hmm. But think about also, too, the offensive lines that have been able to go out and really, get some good push and keep the quarterback healthy, keep the quarterback free from hits. Last year, we saw that kind of disintegrate, and that's the reason why the Cardinals were the much better football team. But it was just 2 years ago where the Cardinals really took away the Rams.
They were one of the hottest teams in the NFL, and I go back to when the Rams, was it a Monday or Sunday night? I forget. It was
a Sunday.
Was it a Sunday night where they went in there with, COVID had taken out like 5 guys on the team right before the game had started? And they went in there and put it on them. Yeah, and it was just one of those, okay.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a division matchup. And no matter what, when you're playing in a division matchup, you kind of throw the records out. The games are going to be a lot closer, right? Just similar to what Thursday night looked like for those people who watched the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a kind of a clunky type game, but at the end of the day, it was still like a one-possession game throughout. Divisional games are going to be close. So we know that today, Rams, Cardinals, regardless of how we feel about the Rams, how we feel about the Cardinals, these are two teams that are very similar right now in the records. It's not like the Rams have 3-4 wins already. The Rams have 2 wins.
They have one more win than Arizona.
One more win. So that's how crucial today is. And think about the one win for Arizona is one that everyone keeps harping about. Oh, my God, they beat the Cowboys. But when you really look at it, are the Cowboys that good of a football team? We're not playing against Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, right?
You know what somebody said to me on Twitter the other day that wounded me to the core? That the Dodgers are the Cowboys. That all of the talk that this year is going to be different. We got this guy and that guy and everything.
Our team.
Just wait until this year. You wait and see, and then plat, just absolute face plant. And that felt oddly personal and unfortunately very, very accurate.
Well, because a lot of times these teams are judged on what they
championships.
do, championships, and what they do in the postseason.
Sure.
Like regular season, hey, fine, that's great. It's great. You can win as many games you want, but we all know now 100 wins in baseball doesn't get you a championship, and going 13-4 or 14-3 in the NFL doesn't secure you a championship. So that's why I look at a team like the Cowboys or even like the Rams is that they're scrapping just to get in the tournament.
Yeah.
And to keep going with the baseball analogy, the Rams want to be one of those teams that will continue the momentum throughout the regular season and hopefully get into the postseason and still be ready and climbing. That's how they did it a couple of years ago. They were all played the wild card weekend.
Yep.
Right? But it was the first Monday Night Football game of the playoffs. But they use that game to continue to keep getting better. Next thing you know, they roll themselves into a Super Bowl.
Rams did make a move earlier this week. Van Jefferson traded the Atlanta Falcons for a 6th, 7th round pick swap along the way. Jefferson was an interesting player here for the Rams because you go back to the Super Bowl winning season from a couple of years ago. He had a really nice year. He had 6 touchdowns. He had over 800 yards. He had 59 catches over the course of the season. A really solid performance. And then last year, despite having ample opportunities, really didn't happen. And then this year, especially with Cooper Kupp being down for the first 4 weeks of the season, him with not knowing that Puka Nacua was going to be the player that he's become.
Correct.
A huge opportunity right there. And it just never really happened for him. Why not?
I think what happens is he just, to me, hit a ceiling within this offense. Right, and maybe injuries had something to do with it. Remember, he missed the early part of last season as well. Yeah. And I think when you look at where Van Jefferson is and what kind of player he is, he's a guy that has been a big play guy over the top. Right, but outside of that, he wasn't a short, intermediate type of player. And so when you're a guy that can only sort of do one thing within the offense, it kind of hurts the offense a bit. Or because as a defensive player, hey, Van Jefferson's in a football game. What's his best route? It's a go route.
Yep.
His best route is maybe a 15, 16-yard in.
Yep.
It's something that gets me down the field. He never really was the player underneath. That's what Puka Nacua has been, a guy who can show you the inside, the outside, the short, the intermediate, and has been able to go long. And really, it's been the emergence of also Tutu Atwell that has given the Rams that take the top off the defense, that's played the Brandon Cooks role, the Deshaun Jackson role. They got that now in Tutu. And then, oh, by the way, you get Cooper Kupp back, and the rest is history last week. It was just a much different offense with Van Jefferson only getting a couple plays.
It was really interesting to see Kupp come back and play like he hadn't missed a day.
Correct.
That he had over 100 yards,
right.
And I just want to talk about the opening drive last week. He had 5 receptions and 56 yards on the opening drive of the game. That this was like he'd never left. And then as the game went a little bit further, we saw Nakua get that touchdown right before the end of the first half right there. With those two guys together, I can't wait to see what it looks like today, what it looks like in Week 10, what it looks like in Week 15. Just the further we get into the season, I think the more and more explosive those two guys are going to be.
Yeah, it's a difficult challenge for defense because now as a defensive coordinator, and I'm trying to put my defensive coordinator hat on here right now, Travis, I'm trying to figure out who do I stop? Who, to me, if I stop, I feel more comfortable. And we'll see today with Arizona because – usually what you do is you get your best corner and you actually put him on the number 2 receiver.
How come?
Because your best corner goes on number 2 because you're saying, hey, our number 1 is better than their number 2.
Okay.
And you get your number 2 cornerback and you put them on your number 1 receiver so that because you're always going to have safety help. And he's always got help, okay? Like, you've always got help. That's why you always saw, to me, like Jalen Ramsey. I'd rather last year with the Rams, I'd rather have Jalen Ramsey on that team's number 2.
Number 2 because he can do it alone.
Because he can do it alone.
Yeah.
And you want your number 2 to be able to have safety help. I've been in situations where coordinators said, guess what? I know your ability, and I know that guy across from you is an 8-time Pro Bowler, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you some help. And it's not a knock on your players. It's saying that I'm going to give you – and with the Rams, I see that in terms of having both of those players right now, it's a dilemma that's going to put a defensive coordinator in, especially a guy like Jonathan Gannon, who was in the Super Bowl last year, the DC for the Philadelphia Eagles.
So this is something Sean McVay says over and over and over again, and it has to be right near the top of the list of most important attributes as a coach.
Okay.
Put your players in a position to have success.
Right.
Don't ask them to do something that they can't do.
Right.
That it sounds so simple.
Right.
It sounds so incredibly obvious,
right.
but don't ask a guy to do something he can't do, which brings me to this last one here.
Sure.
Are we going to finally not see Michael Hoyt in coverage anymore? Because it just feels to me
right.
like that's something that he's not, designed to do, equipped to do. This is an interior lineman a year ago, and now we have him in coverage against guys like DK Metcalf. It seems I'm confused.
Well, it's the difficulty in sometimes playing the defense, right? Because you have 5 down linemen. One of them is always going to be a dropper, and usually it's the guy who's opposite where the tight end is. Guess what? Teams actually know that. So with teams knowing that in your base package, they're going to manipulate, the formation. They're going to send the motions and the shifts, and they are going to put him in that odd situation. So it's a cat and mouse game that Raheem Morris have to figure out. How do I make sure that we can keep Michael Hoyt rushing and not having him have to go into coverage because of the way that the defense is called?
The Rams and the Cardinals coming up 1:25 kickoff. The man who will be calling all the action, JB Long, joins us next. That's coming up on the Corona Extra Rams Countdown to Kickoff on 710 ESPN.
Football fans, if you're injured in an accident,
for 3rd down and 10. Here's the snap. Looking right. Lobs it for Puka. End zone. Leaping catch. Got it! Puka Nacua! 22-yard go-ahead touchdown.
Rams football.
NFL Sunday.
Live la vida más fina.
Once again, back to Travis Rogers and Kirk Morrison.
All right, it's the Rams and the Cardinals, week 6 of the NFL season. And as we do each and every week, we are joined by the voice of the Rams, J.B. Long. J.B., how you feeling this morning?
Trev, pass that legal pad back.
You want this back?
I never knew you had a cheat sheet here.
I do.
Use this
you can use
on
it.
the
If you
air?
can read it, you are welcome to have it.
This is good homework by you.
Well, I just like to be.
That must make life really easy for Kirk, right? He just rolls in here and knows that you're going to put him on your back.
I like to be prepared. I got
my notes. They're here.
All right, so so you will see that I have a star next to this one because that's where I wanted to start here.
Okay.
What's going on at the end of halves for the Rams?
I'm glad that you put it that way because I think all the attention is rightful. 1-0 from Seattle. But you're right, there was a bit of deja vu all over again, wasn't there, in terms of scoring going into the half, or so you thought, against the Philadelphia Eagles. Next thing you know, just like Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers, they're inside the 1-yard line with a chance to get this walk-off first half touchdown. I think much like the Niners game, it was a combination of a coverage bust. Give your credit where credit's due, the Eagles made some really nice plays. And then you're in this bind where you want to play tough competitive coverage in the end zone, especially if A.J. Brown's going to get that touchdown, you might as well take the flag in the end zone and make them snap it one more time. But the downside of that is both times it went against the Rams, and definitely last week it deflated their momentum on what should have been a halftime lead on the reigning NFC champions.
Yeah, I think, yes, that obviously the momentum that they have not carried into the half has sort of carried over into the second half where the offense seems to get a little stagnant. But I think, to me, the bigger surprise was how quickly Cooper Kupp was acclimated to this offense. It was like he had never even left. And so for him to be able to come out and the first drive have 5 catches, I'm like, okay, the offense, this is what it's going to look like. And obviously it made Van Jefferson expendable.
You're right on all those things. And you probably remember as a player on those Mondays where you go back and you look at the tape and the cut-ups and you're thinking, okay, it may have been a 1-score game or a 2-score game, but the game was really decided in 3, maybe 4 plays. And it wasn't we got out-schemed. It wasn't if Matthew Stafford puts a little air on that seam ball to Tutu Atwell, he can take that thing all the way to the forum.
Correct.
If some of those go balls, vertical shots to Cooper Kupp, where I believe the Rams got the exact look they wanted, call it rust, maybe call it Cooper Kupp not quite being able to hit it into the 6th gear the way that he normally does. Whatever it was, there were a few of those moments on offense where Travis isn't starring that point on his legal pad. We're not starting this conversation. Instead, we're celebrating the fact that you plug Cooper Kupp into this offense next to Puka Nacua. Next thing you know, you're rolling with the best teams in the NFC.
J.B. Long, the voice of the Rams, getting us ready for Week 6. Cardinals here at SoFi Stadium, taking on the Rams. So let's stick with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. That was the opening act of the two of those guys together. How much better can it get?
I think a lot better. I mean, in terms of the target share, the catches, there were enough footballs to go around, even in a game in which the Rams their opportunities were limited because Philly did such a great job of playing keep away. What I didn't see, what I hope to see today, and what I truly believe will happen is that those two in tandem will positively impact the running game.
Yeah.
The way that you can motion and insert either or both of them into your blocking surface should mean really good things for Kyren Williams and the Rams running game. For whatever reason, including the fact that you were in a little bit of a trail position and the Eagles were taking the air out of the football, maybe Sean McVay a little bit too quick to get away from his running game in anticipation of putting it in Puka and Cooper's hands. All those factors meant that Kyren, I think, only got 13 carries last week, was largely not a factor in that contest. Hey, Philly's got maybe the best rush defense in the league. I get it. These Cardinals are not these Eagles, and I think there's an opportunity for Puka and Cooper to catch footballs, but also to take on linebackers or safeties, root them out, and get some gash plays in the running game.
I think really the last week was the first time I've really heard Aaron Donald be as vocal about his defense that they have to step up.
He was frustrated.
I've never heard that from Aaron Donald since we've been here, to where he was like, hey, this isn't getting it done. It's been times where you say, hey, defense will play better, we'll finish. But it was, to me, a frustration of they're not playing at their best, and a lot of it has to do with some guys not living up to their billing.
He needs help.
Yeah.
He really does. And in his defense, when you've got 6 Eagles' eyes and about 850 pounds of Eagle devoted to you on every snap, how he doesn't boil over more often, and the miracles he's able to work despite those adverse circumstances throughout his career is really a testament to his greatness. That was, grading-wise, one of his poorest performances, but if you watch that snap in and snap out, it's like, hey, who are we kidding? And I'll just remind our audience that the week before, he was dominant against Quentin Nelson and the Colts. So it's not like he aged a year overnight or over a week. That was very specific to the Eagles and what they do so well.
Jimmy, let's stay with the defense for a sec. And was it, again, kind of talking about how the rush defense you mentioned a second ago for Philadelphia, it seemed like the Rams missed a bunch of tackles last week.
Bunch of tackles.
Is that because of Jalen Hurts and the players they have,
Yep.
or is that because the Rams have been tackling poorly?
Both, yeah, but it's not like you went out and tackled for 4 hours at practice this week, right? This just wasn't one of those things that you can just devote more practice time to. Fundamentals, attention to detail, yes. But I do think the young edges, whom we're talking about giving Aaron Donald some life and some breathers, they did get Hurts off his spot, or Hurts was at least willing to leave the comfort of his own pocket to spin out and extend plays. O'Shawn Mathis, I thought, had some juice. Byron Young continues to get there, but they're either because of size or inexperience or just lack of, being a first-round talent, they're not completing those plays. Joshua Dobbs, different animal, not as elusive as Anthony Richardson or Jalen Hurts, the last 2 quarterbacks the Rams have faced. However, I think because James Conner's on injured reserve now, he is their leading active rusher.
Right.
So you got to be aware of that, and they also will direct snap to Rondale Moore, one of their receivers, and kind of get you out of sorts that way too. So you have to hold edges, you have to collapse pockets, you have to be patient, I guess, if you're a Rams fan, because I do think there is talent there to find 1 or 2 long-term answers at that outside linebacker position, but it's not a complete solution yet by any means.
I think when we looked at the first 6 games of the season, we said, look, San Francisco, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, hey, we understand that they may be ahead of the Rams. But when it came to this particular game, the Arizona Cardinals, this is a game the Rams have to have. I'm more concerned and alarmed for this team if they don't win today rather than the losses to the other 3 teams who we feel will be in the postseason.
It's funny, the dynamics that life in the National Football League presents. Like, even looking up at my computer today and being like, wait a second, Carolina's up 14-0 at Miami. Did they input that score wrong? Like, that can't be true. But that possibility is out there. And I think we all agree, like, I can sense it in our body language. We all think there's an opportunity for the Rams to win today. And that's not any slight to the Arizona Cardinals. They've actually been a top 10 offensive group based on a lot of metrics, so you better be careful with them. But I think the optimism is that we've seen ingredients that could lead to a complete performance from the Rams that put them very much in a playoff conversation. It's yet to all come together for 4 quarters. Today feels like that opportunity for them. And if it comes to fruition, they will reward a lot of our optimism and faith. But the dark side of the moon is there, too. If they don't.
That's the one.
And last year against Arizona is where the dam broke for me. Matthew Stafford didn't play that game. Cooper Kupp got -1 receiving yards, got hurt in that game. His year was done. So there's still a sour taste in my mouth seeing the Cardinals at SoFi Stadium, because that's when I think you finally had to admit that 2022 was not going to go the Rams' way.
And the difference between 2-4 and 3-3 feels like a million miles. I mean, obviously there's 11 games left no matter what happens today, but at 3-3 you are very much in it in the NFC, and at 2-4 you're going to need something to happen for you along the way. And especially, like you were mentioning, JB, with an opponent like Arizona that maybe for the first time, maybe the second time, if you want to throw Indianapolis in there, going into the game, it's like, all right, this is one that you feel like you have a very good chance of winning.
Right. Mathematically not a must-win, solidly in that can't-lose category, only because here's a moment in time where you're home, you're healthy, like Aaron Donald's going to play, Cooper Kupp's going to play, Matthew Stafford, like your offensive line, I think you have your 5 best offensive linemen all dressed and starting in their spots today. If you are who we think you can become, today's the day you put up 35-40, you look the part, you build some confidence coming back next week against Pittsburgh.
Well, this still involves Los Angeles because USC lost the football game last night to your Golden Domers, right? Congratulations, Notre Dame. But obviously this may be one of the teams, the Arizona Cardinals, that may be rumored if they have the opportunity to draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall. So it's like for Arizona, you as a fan, maybe you want them to have a great game and show a great showing, but they will be a better team, we think, if Caleb Williams is drafted to them next year. And what happens to Kyler Murray? So always look at, hey, what's going on with the Rams, but also what's going on the other side, because with each loss, that also seeps in the minds of those players.
Yeah. Look, I think Caleb's a great player. I don't want to see him in the division for the next decade.
Right.
But beat the Cardinals and let the rest take care of itself. Put yourself in a position to maybe make moves at this year's trade deadline and let the Cardinals worry about next spring's draft. But one undercurrent to that's interesting is, remember, not only does Arizona have their inventory, they've also got some help coming back from Houston for that day one trade. So if you want to root for the Rams, great, and also root for the Texans to, I think, beat the Saints, because every game that Houston wins undermines the pick that the Cardinals are going to get from them.
You mentioned the trade deadline. Sean McVay said the other day that he doesn't expect them to be terribly active. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. Got a couple of weeks before that comes up. If they did decide to dip their toe in that playoff, or excuse me, that trade pool, where do they go? Do they go secondary? Do they go edge? Where do you think that their area of emphasis would be?
I think both of those would be worthwhile needs to address. I think edge is the higher order priority. I think it's more about rush than cover in the context of this defense in terms of where they're deficient. Obviously, you got to get maybe these next 2, 3 out of the next 4, 2 out of the next 3, however you want to shape it up to put yourself in a position where it might make sense to step on the gas as opposed to just continuing to play out this season and let your younger players grow into roles. But as always, it takes 2 to tango, and we don't know what that market is going to look like. The Rams were setting the market for many years in those deals, going back to Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey and Dante Fowler. Then they kind of priced themselves out of that market by getting in the Burns sweepstakes with Carolina last year, the Christian McCaffrey, and they realized, hey, this market's too hot. We're not going to play. And probably good that they didn't. But also, it hurts every week, doesn't it, to watch Christian McCaffrey play for the 49ers? So,
good.
That would be a really worthwhile issue to have. It would mean that the Rams did a lot of good things between now and Halloween if we're having those conversations.
JB Long, the voice of the Rams, will be on the call alongside DeMarco Farr. Kickoff coming up at 1:25. JB, as always, thanks a bunch.
Somebody get Kirk some grapes and some palm fronds.
He's melting in front of
He is melting.
You all right there, Kirk?
No, I'm right directly in the sun. That's why. I gotta get
I'm just taking your shade. That's what it is.
JB,
Let me make some room for you. My bad. Who put this guy in the middle?
Yes.
Good to see you both.
Thanks, brother.
All right, thanks to JB. We're going to go around the NFL. Lots of weird scores going on right now, Kirk, and I'm glad you're back in the shade.
I'm good.
This is very good
JB
news.
had to just move to the left.
You're going to make it. I'm very optimistic we're both going to make it to the end of the line. We'll take a look around the rest of the NFL. That's coming up next on the Corona Extra Rams Countdown to Kickoff on 710 ESPN.
It's Evan Cohen.
to kick off.
Once
Kirk, I don't know if you caught it, if you were in the press box or not when they were introducing the lineups. I was a little late getting up there last week.
Okay.
And they were introducing the offense,
Right.
coming out, this guy, that guy. Puka Nacua got such a massive response.
Right.
Number 17, BYU. Puka Nacua. The place went to do that in 4 games, to go from a guy, anybody that says, when they took him, in the 5th round, like, he's going to be a star. They're lying. Nobody knew what was coming, and he's become a fan favorite in 5 weeks. It's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, because production. And maybe it was probably all the fantasy owners who had Puka Nacua.
Get him on the waiver wire after the first week.
Absolutely. That may be something that I think a lot of the fans were yelling about. But no, he's taken this fan base by storm, because when Cooper Kupp was out, he was the best player on the field. Think about it. The best player for the Rams was Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
And you can only start to imagine what it would look like with Cooper Kupp when he's out there on the field with him. We saw what it looked like last week, and it looked really, really good. But, man, he is now he's a household name around the National Football League. I've told you before, there were 19 receivers taken in front of Puka Nacua. Not 1, not 3, not 7, 19 receivers taken in front of Puka Nacua, and yet he's beating all of them right now. He's leading all of them in yards and catches.
I'm taking nothing away from Nacua, who has been absolutely fantastic for them this season. But how much of this is just that Matthew Stafford, if you get open, he's going to get you the ball.
Yeah.
That if you're where you're supposed to be, that ball's coming. It's coming on time. It's on target, and it's just up to you to catch the damn thing.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. That's what that's what Puka Nacua has been able to do. Create separation.
Yep.
I can teach you how to get off the line, but I can't teach you how to separate. That's what Nacua has been doing. That's what the NFL is all about. Everybody's fast. Everybody can get off the line of scrimmage, but can you separate? And that's what Nacua does best.
He's been terrific so far. Let's talk about what's going on around the rest of the NFL from Morongo Casino, Resort, and Spa. Good times. All right, so I want to make sure that I set this correctly, because this is not me getting ready to throw shade. This is me asking a football question. We might see something for the first time today that we haven't seen yet in the career of Brock Purdy, who has not lost a single regular season football game as a starter. Not one. He is undefeated. I want to see Brock Purdy with his team behind in the second half, trying to lead that team down with a little bit of pressure going on, because the Niners have been so good.
Yeah.
They've got so many weapons, whether it's McCaffrey or Debo or Kittle or Ayuk, and that unbelievable offensive line, a great defense that keeps the other team out of the end zone. Can Brock Purdy do the thing that you have to do in the NFL once in a while, which is lead a comeback win? Looking at it right now, the Niners and the Browns tied at 10, about to go in the third quarter. The Browns have the ball in San Francisco territory. Are we going to have to see a Brock Purdy comeback?
Yeah, you're going to see it. You're going to see it without Debo Samuel, who was out with a shoulder injury. He won't return. So that's one less weapon for Brock Purdy. And this is what we all want to see. We've seen Brock Purdy play with the lead.
Yep.
But can he go out and lead a comeback? Can he go out and lead a 2-minute drill with the game on the line? So a lot of questions can be answered today over in Cleveland when it comes to Brock Purdy.
And then you look at what's going on the other side. P.J. Walker is playing quarterback for the Browns today. No Deshaun Watson. And here we are, 10-10 in the third quarter. This is going to mess up a lot of eliminator pools.
Yes,
because I would imagine San Francisco is a pretty popular pick in this one of the last 2 remaining undefeated teams.
Well, you got to think San Francisco came off of a big win over the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday night. They fly across the country. They play that early 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern kick. And it's a little bit different. I always talk about the road games are a little bit different in terms of your routine. And look, the people over in Cleveland, those players on that team, that defense, I know who we're playing.
Yeah.
Those dudes over there are 5-0. We want to give them their first loss. The added motivation is already there, but your level of play goes up a bit. If I'm Myles Garrett, wait, Nick Bosa won Defensive Player of the Year? Okay, I'm going to show you who the defensive player
what it looks like
in the league is. This is what those types of games are. So I am definitely not surprised at this score at all, where it's at right now. Just circle back with me about 5 minutes left, because that's where this game will be decided, that final 5 minutes.
It also goes to show you just how hard it is to run the table in the NFL. There's a reason that this almost never happens, and it's because you just got so many teams. And you say it all the time, Kirk, and you're right. It's a week-to-week league. This is something you never know, because a Cleveland team that's good, not great, playing with a backup quarterback is toe-to-toe with the best team in the league deep into the third quarter.
Yeah, and because there's a belief, too, though.
Sure.
There's a belief that Cleveland, look, they could have, start crying, hey, we don't have Nick Chubb, we don't have Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
They're out two of their best players. But that's what this league is about. It's a next man up mentality. We just talked about Puka Nacua. We didn't expect that, but next man up, he's delivered. And that's what the Cleveland Browns are doing today right now. But can they finish? That's what this game is all about. You can be scored, you can be tied up, but can you finish in Cleveland?
All right, let's move on to another game here. The Commanders are beating the Falcons 24-10 in Atlanta. And this is one of these games that is interesting for maybe reasons that have nothing to do with the football itself.
Okay.
The Falcons and the Commanders are going to be those teams that are going to be 8-9, 9-8, 10-7 at the end of the year. These are the teams that the Rams are going to be competing for to get into the playoffs. These are the Rams do play the Commanders later in the season. They don't have the Falcons this year. But these sort of games, and you look at the Commanders right now, 2-3 with an opportunity to win a road game today, that just feels like the Rams East.
You're 100% correct because, look, when I think at Washington, they still got to play all those teams in their own division, right?
Yep.
They got to play the Cowboys. They got to go out and play against the Giants. They got to go and play against the Eagles. So you feel like their record is going to be one in which, they'll lose a little bit more games. You mentioned they're 8-9. That's about where I've kind of have the Washington Commanders. When it comes to the Atlanta Falcons, a little bit different. They've got weapons. They've got a quarterback that people are a little iffy on at times in Desmond Ridder. But they have the players, and they're also in a division that nobody's going to run away with it unless the Tampa Bay Buccaneers continue to keep winning with Baker Mayfield.
So the Vikings have a 19-6 win, or lead, I should say, against the Chicago Bears right now. Kirk Cousins earlier in the week said that he would not waive his no-trade clause, which means somebody that was probably at the top of the list. The Vikings are off to a tough start at 1-4. Kirk Cousins isn't going anywhere. He's staying in Minnesota.
Yeah, they win this game. They're back at 2-4. They feel a little bit better. Now, remember, they're without Justin Jefferson. So they're without their best receiver. Justin Fields is actually out right now currently for the Chicago Bears. Tyson Bagent, the pride of Shepherd College, is now the quarterback right now.
Like shepherding, or is it like the last name? Like goats and sheep? Like, what are we doing? Or is this like a last name like Colonel Sam Shepherd?
It is Shepherd College, and I believe it is NAIA.
Okay.
I just met him at the Combine. Dude's a great dude. Like his dad is actually a world-class arm wrestling champion.
No kidding.
I swear to God. So this is things that you find out at the Combine. I'm like, hey, so how much do you talk about your dad and not your football? He's like, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So that also goes to show you, if you can play, they're going to find you.
They're going to find you.
Yeah, whether you're at Notre Dame or Ohio State or USC or Shepherd College, if you can play.
Shepherdstown, West Virginia. It's Shepherd's College. Really.
There you go. And they found him.
The only reason why people kind of know about it is because the Washington Bullets, now they're the Washington Wizards, but the Bullets, that's where they had their
training camp?
Training camp.
Oh, right.
At Shepherd's College.
So this is one of these things, and it's a little bit more understandable now because Jacksonville has started to put together a pretty nice football team, but if there is a sure thing in the NFL, it's that Jacksonville is going to beat the Colts. They're ahead 31-6,
right?
And it just feels like no matter who's good, who's bad, it doesn't matter. Jacksonville beats the Colts.
Beats the Colts in Jacksonville for sure.
Right.
That's just always going to happen. I was a former Jaguar. We beat the Colts in Jacksonville. There's a reason why I started the Jacksonville Jaguars defense today. And then you have the whole Gardner Minshew revenge game.
Sure.
And look, everybody's all aware of that. But the defense of the Jaguars is actually really good. They're really starting to come into their own as a team. I'm not surprised by the way that they're up right now on the Colts with no Anthony Richardson, who could be lost for the season.
Yeah,
Travis.
that's a shame.
Oh,
that's a shame. That dude is fun to watch. And now that the Rams are done with him and we don't have to go see him compete against our team, I want to watch him play football. Yeah, he's a very special talent to be sure. Texans are ahead on the New Orleans Saints 20-10. That one has about 3.5 minutes to go in the third quarter. C.J. Stroud is a real NFL quarterback. Like the Ohio State thing, it's like, okay, hasn't really worked out for a lot of those guys, but it looks like C.J. Stroud is going to be the exception to the rule.
Yeah, he's a dude. Okay, and when we talk about dudes as guys who you trust, he's showing early on that can be their quarterback for the future.
Yeah,
he's getting better and better. And look, Bobby Slowick is his offensive coordinator. Slowick comes from the Shanahan system. And he's a young guy, too. When you get these under 40 type coordinators, the young guys, you love that you have this sort of maturation that happens. We saw it with Jared Goff and Sean McVay, that you continue to see guys get better and better each week, and that's what I'm seeing from the Houston Texans, who have an outstanding defense as well. Remember, they also got Will Anderson.
Yep.
They drafted right after C.J. Stroud, so they got two outstanding picks, and they're playing well.
And they got Carolina's pick coming up this upcoming draft as well. So they're going to get another very, very good player, because Carolina might end up with the number 1 pick overall. It goes straight to Houston. Very quickly, Kirk, tomorrow night right here, SoFi Stadium, the Dallas Cowboys come in to take on the Chargers. How do you see that one playing out?
I honestly think that I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys. And the reason why I'm going with the Cowboys is I honestly feel like last week the Cowboys got embarrassed. They got flat out embarrassed.
They got killed.
It just shows you the 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles are on a different level. The Cowboys are not them boys, right?
Right, not this year.
They're not them boys right now. But I look at them coming into SoFi. We know what it's going to look like tomorrow night. It's going to be a bunch of Cowboys fans coming in here. They're going to be loud. They're going to be proud.
Air Force Ones, high white socks, jean shorts, and a Cowboy jersey.
Yeah. So I don't know what the Cowboy jersey is going to be now. What is the Cowboy jersey of choice? Remember, years past, it was Ezekiel Elliott.
Right. Oh,
it was
that's
the number
right.
21. You always had that one.
It's got to be Micah Parsons, right?
It may be the Parsons jersey.
Yeah.
You'll see some Dak Prescott jerseys around here for sure. But it's going to be one in which CeeDee Lamb, I can throw that out there. But I think it's going to be one of those games, Travis, that the Cowboys will play much better than they played last week, and I'm going to give them the edge in this game. Remember, no Mike Williams as well out for the year for the Chargers. Can Joshua Palmer, can they hold on? Can they win a game where they're favored?
For the first time, somebody's going to be having a very bad season at the end of Monday night. The Chargers or the Cowboys are going to have a real problem by the time that one ends. Super Bowl champion DeMarco Farr. He joins us next on the Cronax Rams Countdown to Kickoff on 710 ESPN. Kirk, I have a very important question for you.
Sure.
Would you say that what I have going on right now is a beard, or is this just me having a little stubble? Because
you lined it up.
We're getting okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because this is important, and here's
you lined
why.
It up.
Since I've had my beard for a couple of years,
yes.
I shaved it for a little Dodger rally.
Correct.
Clearly did not work.
Clearly.
0-3. USC goes down and loses a game. Last week I was here clean-shaven. The Rams lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. Nothing has gone right with me clean-shaven, so hopefully the beard is going to put us back on the right side of this.
Fear the beard. There it is.
There it is. Okay,
beard.
so good. Because I was a little bit worried it was more just not clean, but I tightened it up a little bit. So not my fault anymore. Whatever happens.
Fall is upon us, right? It's pumpkin spice lattes and beard time.
Yeah, but it's 140 degrees out here at SoFi today.
True.
Pretty warm along the way. Let's go back to Cooper Kupp for a sec. JB mentioned it when we talked with him a few minutes ago. DeMarco Farr's making his way over here. We'll talk with him in a couple of minutes. Kupp obviously was very good for his first game back, but was there just a little bit, was the timing just off a hair? Was the fitness off just a hair? And not that he's out of shape, but just playing NFL football for real is not the same as, being in practice or doing your cardio. It's a totally different animal. Will we see that precision that Stafford and Kupp had together? Will it be back today?
Yeah, I think you'll see it back, because remember, he was not able to practice. They opened up the 21-day window last week, and so he really had 1 week of practice with Matthew Stafford. I think there was one play in particular that I think of from last week that really stuck out to me. Well, there was the one where Matthew Stafford threw to the end zone toward Cooper Kupp, and he kind of turned sort of Willie Mays style twice, right, looking for the ball. He looks over one shoulder, then he turns around, looks over the other shoulder, and the ball ends up dropping behind him. And so it's those situations.
That's stuff we didn't see with those guys when they were on the same page.
And that just comes with the reps of doing it over and over again. Look, he had not practiced with the Rams for the first month. So not practicing for a month because he's not allowed to, and you try to come back out in 1 week, they were just off just a little bit. And little things can change the way that a ball is thrown, where there's inside leverage from a cornerback or a safety kind of shielding to one side. Matthew Stafford adjusts to where he puts the football, and you could tell they were just a little bit off, whereas Puka Nacua knows where to be at.
Yeah, no, those guys are certainly locked in along the way. Let's talk a little bit about what Aaron Donald said on his defense. That this week he said some things that were not things you typically hear from Aaron Donald. He was clearly very frustrated about how the end of the half concluded against the Eagles, where they gave up that touchdown. He also said that, look, somebody else is going to have to step up when he's getting double and triple teamed the way that he is. What did you make of those comments? Because Aaron Donald doesn't say things like that very often.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to criticize him because the production is not there for him.
Yeah.
And so think about it against the bigger teams, right? Against San Francisco, against Philadelphia, against Cincinnati. Everyone's waiting for this explosion from Aaron Donald. And he says, look, I'm getting the attention of the entire offensive line. I need other guys that have to step up. He's without a Leonard Floyd. He's without a Dante Fowler.
Von Miller.
Right, Von Miller. He had other guys along that defensive front. I mean, I'll even throw in the Ashawn Robinsons.
Sure.
Right?
Greg Gaines.
Greg Gaines.
Sue.
And Ndamukong Suh.
Michael Brockers. There's a lot of them.
Think about those are the names of the defensive players, and Brockers was the one who I was really thinking of. I'm glad you mentioned. Because those guys were there. Those were the guys who really helped out Aaron Donald so that he never really felt like it was all on him. That's what I'm feeling right now. I feel like Aaron Donald is walking out there for the defense, and the entire defense is on his shoulders. There's certain guys in the NFL that I remember when I played for sure, but there were certain guys that you always wait to go make a play. I can't wait for that guy to make, because once he made the play, everybody got excited. Everybody wanted to make a play. It seems that's what the Rams defense does. They only have 2 takeaways this whole season.
Both by the same guy.
Yeah, by the same guy. So Keller Weatherspoon said, hey, I can show you. I'm a veteran in this league.
Yep.
But the other younger players, they've got to go out and go create some.
Who's the number one candidate? Is it Byron Young? Is he the one that's got to step up? Is it somebody else? Is it Michael Hoyt getting back there a little bit more frequently? JB also said that they've gotten pressure on the quarterback, but they haven't quite gotten there. They've made them move off their spot. They've made them move their feet a little bit, but they haven't racked up a ton of pressure on the quarterback, and specifically sacks.
That's one of the most difficult things, Travis, and I remember as a player as well on this one, is that when you're a younger player in the league, I just want to break the huddle. I just want to do my job.
Yeah.
Okay? So I know that, hey, over cover 3, that means I'm in the over alignment. We're playing cover 3 on the back end. Where's my zone at? Am I a hook player? Am I a zone player? When the ball snapped, hey, I'm in my hook and I'm in my zone. I did my job. And then I remember my coach says, okay, that's fine. You did your job, Kirk. Now go make a play.
Right.
I know you. Oh, it's okay to just
the
do
next
your job.
level.
Like the next part is now go make the play.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing guys who are doing their job, but they're now not making the play. Like go make a play. Go strip the football. Go get an interception. Those are the parts that this defense has to take the next step because guys are in the right spot. But Michael Hoyt, I know you're in coverage, but go make a play.
Right.
Get a hand in there. Right. Darian Kendrick, you're there. Make a play. Make the tackle. And that's where you will start to grow defensively.
And make tackles. Like you just said right there. There were a couple of big missed tackles last week, a couple of third downs, in fact, that could have got the Rams off the field, put the offense back out there, because the Rams offense has been able to move the ball, in particular in the first half, a little bit less so in the second half. Let's talk about Stafford here for a sec, because maybe as far as fantasy numbers go,
correct,
Matthew Stafford is not making people a ton of points on Sunday afternoon. But watching him play and watching what he's done through 5 weeks, he's been terrific, Kirk. Not just good, but very, very good. Maybe they're 2-3, and he doesn't have 15 touchdown passes, but he has been as good as I've ever seen him through these first 5 games.
Yeah, the only thing for me with Matthew Stafford is the interceptions, right? He's got to cut that number down. That's the part that kind of has stuck out to me when I've looked at him, is that he's played consistent, but then there's this part where you're saying those 5 interceptions have come at crucial moments.
Yeah.
They've really changed the time. Right now, he's 5 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, so he's like 1-to-1 for every touchdown.
3 of those picks, though, Kirk, were probably not on him.
I agree with that, but they still go on his record.
Yeah,
right.
fair.
And that's the tough part. Whether it's Kyron Williams bounces off his face mask, or where Van Jefferson gets cut off of a route, those fall on him, and that's where he will continue to get better this season. I just think that now we're in a time within the offense, he doesn't have to say who's going out there. We know who it is. It's going to be, when they go 11 personnel, it's Puka Nacua, it's Cooper Kupp, and it's going to be Tutu Atwell. Those are your 3 receivers. Mix in a little Tyler Higbee, and you get a couple checkdowns from Kyron Williams. I think that those numbers, interception numbers, will come down.
Let's talk a little bit about the other team that's going to be on the field today, the Arizona Cardinals. They come in. Their record is not particularly good at 1-4. They did beat the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about them a minute ago, that maybe they're a little overvalued in what they are. But Arizona felt like a team that, and you don't hear this word in the NFL very often, right. Tank. You hear it in the NBA. You see it in Major League Baseball. It happens. You see it in the National Hockey League, where teams race to the bottom to get that number 1 pick overall. You don't really see it in the NFL. The record of the Cardinals at 1-4 isn't great, but they've been in all 5 of those football games. They've played very hard through the first 5 weeks of the season.
You are what your record is. You're 1-4. But when you look at especially the first 2 games of the season, those are 1-score games. And they could have went anywhere. They had a bad half against the New York Giants. That second half where the Giants able to come back. And we will be talking about a much different outlook for the Arizona Cardinals. Look, Joshua Dobbs was a guy who they brought in at the quarterback spot. They told Colt McCoy, hey, see you later. Thanks for the memories. See you later. This is going to be a better bridge situation until Kyler Murray is able to come back. But what I've seen from Joshua Dobbs is 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's utilizing all the guys that he has available. He's using his Zach Ertz, right? He used Marquise Hollywood Brown. These are still some game breakers, some guys who can have a big impact on today's game.
They've got
James
18 runs over 10 yards this year, too. On the ground, they've been a reasonably explosive team as well.
Well, without James Conner, that's what scares me today.
Yep.
Because they're the second leading rusher for the Arizona Cardinals is Joshua Dobbs, the quarterback. Mm-hmm. He brings an element that the Rams saw last week from who? Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, man. And the guys who are actually the play callers have that pedigree from Philadelphia, right? You bring Jonathan Gannon in, who's a defensive coordinator / head coach. Drew Petzik is their offensive coordinator, who runs a lot of that same stuff that you saw in Philadelphia. Also, he was doing it in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson last year. So we may see a lot of quarterback run to supplement not having James Conner available.
What do you think the future of Kyler Murray is in Arizona? I mean, they might get the number 1 pick. They will have a high pick, it seems like, whether that's in the top 5 or whatever. But this is a quarterback-heavy draft.
Correct.
They just gave him a whole bunch of money. He's coming off of an injury. He's coming off his worst season of his career. What do you think Kyler Murray does in Arizona moving forward?
Me personally, what I think should happen is I honestly think that they should try to find a trade partner try to pay some of that salary and move on. If Caleb Williams is available, I'm sorry, I'm going after Caleb Williams.
Sure.
I mean, I'm going after a quarterback on a rookie contract that will be the future of my team. I think that's how you do it. And honestly, you don't want Kyler Murray to play this year because I don't want him to get injured. And then you're stuck with him.
Yeah, let's find something else in that draft and go from there. That it turns over incredibly quickly in the NFL. The Rams and the Cardinals, Week 6, the NFL season. Rams looking to get back to 500 along the way, looking to make sure that Arizona does not pick up that second win of the season as well. We are back with more. Still trying to track down DFAR. It's all coming up on the Corona Extra Rams. Countdown to kickoff on 710 ESPN.
Exit.
Ready right now.
The Corona Extra Rams countdown to kickoff.
Hi, this is Matthew Stafford of your Los Angeles Rams, the home of Rams football.
Corona Extra. Find the fine life. Live la vida más fina. Now inside SoFi Stadium with one of the fiercest linebackers to ever play the game, Kirk Morrison. Here is your host, Travis Rogers.
A beautiful, warm Sunday, sunny afternoon here at SoFi Stadium. The Rams getting ready to go back to 500 with a win today against the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals come into this one 1-4, but perhaps most importantly, the Washington Huskies are undefeated, which brings us to the Super Bowl champion, DeMarco Farr, who joins us from the press box inside of SoFi Stadium. How about your dogs, DeMarco? How about that?
Oh, my God. Look, SC and Oregon lost in the same weekend. Oh, my God, I'm so geeked right now. What a game. Heck yeah. Put the Ducks where they belong. Right back in Eugene alone. Yes. Enjoy the Freedom Bowl.
I knew something was coming along the way. I asked you when you came on me and Slee show on Friday, who's the best quarterback in the Pac-12. You said Caleb Williams. You want to change your answer?
No, I'll still go with him for now.
Yeah.
Penix is moving up the charts. You know, some people have dropped Bo Nix. Have you guys dropped Bo Nix
No.
for one game?
No. Heck
Yeah.
no.
Well,
But they say he may, but Penix may have moved ahead of him. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Penix, the actual Heisman odds are now Michael Penix is number one in the Heisman odds right now. So if he continues to win, it could be a Heisman Trophy going up to Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, he's special. Absolutely. The only Heisman Trophy candidate I was up there with was Napoleon Kaufman.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only guy that actually had a legit shot. So that would be something special if that happened.
All right, DeMarco, it's time for Morning Thoughts presented by Quaker, a super trusted superfood and official oatmeal of the Los Angeles Rams. What is happening at the end of the first half? We've seen it a couple of times here in the two games that we've had, where against San Francisco, against Philadelphia, where it felt like the Rams had all the momentum in the world, and then they let it slip through their fingers, and then the second half just did not look like the first half. What's going on?
You know, that's a great question. It's funny. I never thought about the second half collapse until somebody pointed it out. But I think what happens is at halftime, teams start making adjustments. Now, this is especially speaking from the defensive side. They start picking on your weaknesses. They really do. They start coming after certain guys in the passing game with tight ends. They start running end arounds at certain guys from the edge rush position. So, look, I think the Rams are extremely talented, but they're top heavy. They have some special players. But below that, they have some guys that are, you know, happy to be starters in the National Football League. Maybe in a different era, they would not be starters in the National Football League. So I think that starts to catch up with you after a while. Toughness and grit only gets you so far, or it won't beat Philadelphia. Special beats Philadelphia. So, but I think what you have will be enough for tonight versus Arizona, a team that's struggling. Their roster isn't as good as yours, and they're banged up. So some of those guys that don't look special or look average against Philadelphia may actually show up and make plays today.
You know, DeMarco, you're the perfect person to ask this question because you've been around Aaron Donald since he was drafted to the Rams. You've seen him, and you know the way he operates. But when he speaks and he says something, people listen, and he's serious about it. So when he speaks about the defense and not closing out those first halves and needing a little more support, needing more help, needing guys to step up their game, it seems like there's a cry for everybody else on defense to step up their game. How does that play out for today?
Well, he's got to play his part, no doubt. I mean, Raheem Morris, your coaches can scream and, you know, try to get more out of guys. And I said this 2 weeks ago. You know, coaches can't teach you anymore. I mean, you're a professional now. You should know what to do and how to get it. You got to know who to get and how to get them. You should know that by now. But right now, this is where talent needs to take over. And you need to start making plays. So Raheem Morris, Eric Henderson, they can do so much. But when guys on your football team, the special guys, the Haley Comet guys like Aaron Donald, when they start to speak and look you right in the eyes and say, I need more out of you, you'll find that other gear. You'll find ways to make plays. And we know this about the NFL, man. You cannot trade one for one. Meaning if they block you with one, you cannot stay blocked. You got to get off and make plays. If it's one-on-one in the open field with their guy and you've got to tackle them and bring them down, you can't miss or they can't break that tackle. You can't trade for one with anybody in the National Football League, especially against the special football team. So if you don't do that against Arizona today, the same thing that happened to Dallas can happen to you.
DeMarco Farr joining us before the Rams and the Cardinals, and the Carl's Jr. Big Char Chili Burger is here, a whole flame-roasted Anaheim chili and big smoky sweet flavor. It's what you get when Carl's Jr. plays with fire. What does no Bobby Brown mean, DeMarco?
Wow, size. He's the guy. He's the nose tackle. He's the wide body. As much as we give Steve Avila credit for being a wide-bodied guard, and Kevin Dotson, I love the fact that he's on that offensive line. They are credit for being wide bodies. Well, Bobby's the wide body on defense. Without him, you don't have that. You know, I talked to Kobe Turner. They're going to start him at nose tackle and keep him on the nickel stuff. So he's going to get his feet wet. He's going to play the zero. You're going to have to take on that center guard gap, hold that up, make sure your linebackers make plays, be a good sidekick for Aaron Donald. So you got to be a tough guy. And then when they open it up for nickel, you've got to become a pass rusher. So this game is as much about him as anybody else on the field today.
Did Jalen Hurts show anything last week that you think that the Arizona Cardinals may try to go after with the Rams? Those third and long, those third and medium sneaks, or his just ability to get out and scramble for the first down? Does that change up maybe how the Rams look at Joshua Dobbs, because that's one of his strengths?
Well, you know this, Kirk. I mean, like back in the day when I saw some stuff on film and I saw like Warren Sapp exploit an offensive line, I would go to my coordinator and say, hey, look, look what he did.
Right.
So let's try to use some of that. So if I'm Arizona and if I'm Zach Ertz, I'm going and saying, hey, look, did you see what Dallas Goedert just did?
Right.
He absolutely killed the Rams linebackers and safeties in one-on-one pass routes. So Zach Ertz should have done the same thing. So if you're Arizona, this is a copycat league. They're going to keep coming at you with the same stuff until you stop it. So I would expect them to try to spread you out, force those one-on-ones, and see if you can make plays against their bigs, their tight ends. See if Joshua Dobbs can get out on the edge like Jalen Hurts or keep plays alive. But, look, there's only one Jalen Hurts. He can do it all. But this guy could be, I guess, a good imitation of him today, at least try. But let's see how the Rams combat that today.
DeMarco Farr will be on the call alongside JB Long. Kickoff coming up in less than 1 hour from right now. Thanks, DeMarco.
You got it, guys.
All right. Kirk, I want to come back and talk about what the Rams have not been able to do in the second half of most of these games so far this season and how they might be able to change that. That's all coming up on the Corona Extra Rams Countdown to Kickoff on the ESPN LA Rams Radio Network. Rams fans, do you think that you can predict the outcome of today's game? Play Rams Pick'em, presented by Pechanga Resort Casino, for the chance to win tickets to the NFL Championship game and more. Head to therams.com/pick'em to make your game predictions. Here's a prediction that I hope I'm right about, Kirk.
Sure.
That the Rams can score right before the end of the half.
They
that
can.
the Rams can keep Arizona out of the end zone towards the end of the half. And then perhaps most importantly, come out and look like a second-half team, which we really have not seen since the opening week in Seattle.
I think that that's a good prediction. I think that all those can happen because it's the game, too. Remember, we used to always talk about the Arizona Cardinals being the Rams slump buster.
Yep.
Remember that the Rams would have a, going a little skid where they lose one game or two games in a row, and all of a sudden it just so happens the Arizona Cardinals fall on your schedule. And it just always made the Rams feel like everything is okay.
Yeah.
The sky isn't falling.
Right.
After a loss last week to Philadelphia, this is the perfect team for the Rams to go out there, execute their game plan. And a team that right now, they're down some players to injury. Their roster right now is currently not stocked like the Rams roster. I'm not saying the Rams roster is one of the best in the NFL, but right now on paper, I'm taking the Rams roster over this Arizona Cardinals team. And this is a get-back game that gets you back to 3-3 to clean the slate and let you look ahead to a couple of games that get you into the bye week feeling like we've got a real shot going into this thing.
Yeah, I'm as guilty of this as anybody, and you always do a good job of correcting me and saying, Trav, it's a week-to-week league. What happens next week has nothing to do with what's happening today.
Correct.
That being said, the Rams' schedule through the first 5 weeks of the season was rough. You've played clearly the two best teams in the league in San Francisco and Philadelphia.
Correct.
You had to go to Cincinnati and play a team that was in the AFC Championship game a year ago and has a very, very talented quarterback, even if he was on one leg in that game.
Right.
And then the Colts, the Colts are the Colts. They played Seattle. They might be looking at their second loss coming up today, but Seattle is a good football team that you played well against and won that game. What's coming up on the schedule starting today? I understand it's a week-to-week league, but it does seem like there are it's more manageable the deeper you get into the season.
Yeah, it does, because you're starting to see the teams that we thought before the season were like, oh, my God, this is going to be difficult for the Rams. And now I look at the Cowboys differently.
Sure.
I look at the Steelers game, which is next week, differently.
Packers, too.
Yeah, and the Packers game, going into a bye week where I can see the Rams winning the next 3 ball games and feeling very confident about their chances as they go down the stretch with, games against every division opponent again. And then they got some other games that I think that should be winnable that we didn't think so in the beginning of the year. I just think that their confidence now as a team can be boosted today by going out and executing and finishing a first half, finishing a full game. They can do that today.
Yeah, they got a real opportunity here because, like you said, Pittsburgh, an unbelievably talented defensive team, T.J. Watt coming in next week, but a team that doesn't really do much at all on offense. In the second half of that schedule, you've got a team like the Giants on the schedule. The Baltimore game in Baltimore feels like that's opened up a little bit. The Washington Commanders. There are some opportunities in that second half of the schedule that have not been through the first 5 games. The Rams are in a pretty good spot with a win today. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about more. What's getting you ready for the Rams and the Cardinals? What do we look for from the Cardinals today? That's coming up next on the Corona Extra Rams Countdown to Kickoff on the ESPN LA Rams Radio Network.
The mighty SUV.
and Kirk Morrison.
Rams fans, El Torito is offering free nachos when your Los Angeles Rams successfully make a fourth down stop. So get loud. This is Nacho First Down. Visit therams.com/reward for more details. We had a couple of chances at it last Sunday, Kirk, to get some nachos on the board. It didn't happen against the Eagles. The brotherly shove did what it's supposed to do. I feel like today's the day. I feel like today's the day that the Rams are going to get that fourth down stop.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Hopefully they don't have a lot of opportunities. Right, because they're getting off the field on third down. Okay?
Right.
Because remember, this is a fourth down play, but this could be a desperation play as well when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals. But for the Rams, to me, today, it's going to be a big third down day. Get off and not allow a guy like Joshua Dobbs to run around and make some plays. That's how he's hurt teams so far this season, is his legs and finding the chains. He's their second leading rusher, but right now he's their active leading rusher with James Conner on the sideline.
Yeah, and no disrespect meant to Josh Dobbs or anybody else,
right.
But this is a different animal today. This is not the 49ers who are loaded with weapons. This is not the Philadelphia Eagles who have, a dynamic quarterback and playmakers and the best offensive line in football. It's not even
Correct.
Joe Burrow on one leg or Richardson, who is an unbelievable athlete. It can just make stuff happen.
Yep.
Today's the day that you need to ball out. Today's the day you need to show up and really kind of lock this thing down early on and just be the better team from start to finish.
Yeah, I want to see the Rams have a complete game because even we saw it week one. We saw what it looked like against Seattle. We haven't seen it since.
Right.
We haven't seen it since. We haven't seen them put an entire football game together. Even with their other win against Indianapolis, great first half, but then the second half was one in which the Rams just didn't do anything until basically the end. They win in overtime, but they didn't play well. I want to see them play a complete game today, running the football, also getting both guys involved. Puka Nacua and also Cooper Kupp, week 2 of them together, I think that's going to be huge for this offense. To what the point that JB made, that will get the running game finally going for the Rams.
What do you think the magic number is to get into the playoffs in the NFC with wins? Is it 9? Does 9 get you in? Is there a world that exists where maybe 8 might get it done? Because as you look at it right here, right, you obviously have your 4 division winners, and the next group, the group of wild card teams is Seattle, Atlanta, Dallas, New Orleans, Green Bay. Well, you play 4 of those 5 teams in front of you.
Correct.
If you can get through those 5 games, or those 4 games, 3-1, maybe even at 2-2, it just feels like sticking around 500 might be good enough to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think right around there. I think 8 or 9 wins, more so 9. 9 for sure, I think, puts you right there on the cusp of the playoffs. 10 wins will get you in. I know that's a tall task for the Rams at 2 wins because right now, at 10 wins, right now they're at 2, so they got to win, 6 more games or 8 more games to get them to 10. But I think if they're hovering around 8 or 9, that is something that we'll see. But again, it will come down to those tiebreakers against other NFC opponents. Yeah,
division record too, especially against Seattle, right? Because it feels like Seattle is certainly a playoff caliber team as well. And what maybe felt like a division this year that was going to be a little top-heavy with San Francisco up there. We were going to see what Seattle looks like. The Rams not expected to do a lot coming into the season. Arizona in the process of restructuring their organization. This could be another 3 playoff team division this year. There's a world where both Seattle and the Rams get in as wildcard teams.
I could definitely see that. We saw that. I think, every division has one of those. This could be the year for the NFC West because I don't see that coming out of the NFC South. Right now, the best team in the NFC North is the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
And then
are they the 3rd best team in the whole conference?
I think that they've entered the chat. I'm not sure if they are.
If it's not them, who is it?
It's them.
Yeah.
Right now. There's San Francisco, Philadelphia, and then there's obviously Detroit.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any, argument with that. They look like the most complete team, and they're still, I think, a team that's still building. They just got guys back from suspension. The running game looks good.
They got a little something about them too. There's just a little bit of that
moxie.
Yeah,
they look a little confidence about them. I think I told you I stayed in Tampa. The Detroit Lions were staying there, so I got a chance to see them. They're walking around. They're very confident. And they want to go shut down the creamsicle jerseys.
Oh, that's right. We get the creamsicles today. Yes. That's right. Those, by the way, don't hate those.
That was one of the best.
That makes me feel like I'm 11 years old again, seeing the Doug Williams and those guys out there. Absolutely. Can't wait to see that. All right, we're going to come back. We'll give you our final thoughts of the day before we hand it over to JB. It's all coming up next on the Corona Extra Rams Countdown to Kickoff on the ESPN LA Rams Radio Network.
Good.
Hear every moment of the play-by-play with JB DeMarco and MJD just by listening on the all-new ESPN LA app.
Download the ESPN LA app, then bam, you're one tap away from the Rams.
Exactly right, Matthew Stafford. Search ESPN LA in your app store or Google Play. Download, tap, bam! You've got Rams football in the palm of your hand.
Rams football.
Once again, back to Travis Rogers and Kirk Morrison.
Rams can get to 500, Kirk. They've been only over 500 once at 1-0. They fell back down, then they're under, then they catch back up to it again. It's an opportunity to be on the right side. Right now, let's talk about some injuries. Winning matters, especially after an accident at calljacob.com. We're here for you when you need a big win. After an accident, go to calljacob.com or call 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB. No Joe Noteboom, still dealing with his groin injury along the way. So obviously Kevin Dotson in at that right guard spot. And look, no disrespect to Joe Noteboom, but the five guys that they have right now feel like a unit that is solid. An NFL offensive line that you can do some stuff with.
Yeah, 100%. You feel like this is a solid unit, and then Noteboom just gives them a little more depth in some positions right now. I don't know if he maybe regains his spot back, but they traded for Kevin Dotson for a reason, and right now he's playing. He played well last week. Now, look, he went up against Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Those are some big dudes, big studs over there with Philadelphia. But I would say this, for the most part, they did open up some lanes in the rushing, but they also kept Matthew Stafford upright for a majority of the game.
Except for when Havenstein went out for that one play, and McClendon missed that block, and Stafford took a wicked shot in that moment. And that, look,
we all saw it coming.
We can talk about Puka, we can talk about Kupp and Aaron Donald and all these guys. You know, Kellen Witherspoon had a couple of interceptions so far this season. They're guys that are playing with. If something happens to number 9, we're done here. Like we know what is waiting on the sidelines, right? It is canceling Christmas. That dude cannot take shots like that. That made the whole stadium hold their breath.
Yeah, it did. And look, we know what it looked. We saw what it looked like last year with no Matthew Stafford. It was tough. Remember, we went through a John Wolford, a Bryce Perkins, and got to a Baker Mayfield. We don't want to see that again this year. I don't know if I'm ready to start the Brett Rippon era here in Los Angeles.
No. We just went through the non-Matthew Stafford era last season, and we know what that is. I don't need to see it again. Hopefully Matthew Stafford nice and healthy throughout the rest of the season. Puka Nacua, 5 weeks into the season, over 500 yards, got a touchdown again last week. He's gotten into the end zone a couple of times, and I keep waiting, not because of anything that he's not doing, but an opposing defense to take him out of the game, and it just hasn't happened yet.
No, it's a credit to Puka Nacua. A credit to him finding ways to get open, finding ways to get separation, and I think you add in what Cooper Kupp was able to do, and I think today is going to be very difficult for Jonathan Gannon and his bunch with Arizona, because these are two guys who are proving week in and week out. I mean, Cooper Kupp is a Super Bowl MVP. We don't even have to talk about that anymore.
Right.
But Puka Nacua is playing at the type of level that Cooper Kupp is the last 3 to 4 seasons. So I'm not surprised at what may happen. I think the way that this game may play out, we may see Matthew Stafford just throwing the football around, because I don't know if they have the defensive backs, the Arizona Cardinals, so they can contend with what the Rams have offensively.
And they're banged up in that part of their secondary as well. Is that how the Rams put together a win today, Kirk? Is that how they get back to 3-3, is by putting it up in the air?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a trust that Matthew Stafford has, or Sean McVay has in Matthew Stafford, that they will continue to just say, you know what, Matthew, just put us in the right positions.
Yeah.
You're going to make the right plays. I would love to see them try to establish the run game, but it's hard when you've established who you are. The Rams have an identity. It is Matthew Stafford. I think we're just trying to establish the identity now with Cooper Kupp now added to the mix. They didn't have him in the first 4 games. They had him last week. Look, there's no more Van Jefferson.
Right.
Kyron Williams. There's no more Cam Akers. Think about it. This is probably the new Rams offense.
Yep.
And it's only really a handful of times that they've really been together. That's where they're at right now.
You know what I'd love to see too?
Sure.
Is a big Tyler Higbee game. It's been a minute since we've had that, where he's had double-digit catches, maybe gets into the end zone. Just that day where you and I are doing the post-game show, one of the first things we talk about is Tyler Higbee. I could go for one of those today.
Yeah, I think this may be one of those games, right? I think this is one of those games where the safety position is not one in which the Arizona Cardinals have some guys that can contend with Tyler Higbee on the outside. I think the Rams may try to single him up. Maybe put some him on one side and put 3 receivers on the opposite side and see what the Cardinals come up with.
It is a beautiful day out here at SoFi Stadium. The Rams and the Cardinals getting ready. Kickoff coming up in just about 20 minutes from right now. We're going to send it back inside SoFi to JB Long, the voice of the Rams, alongside the Super Bowl champion DeMarco Farr. They will have you the rest of the way. That's all coming up on the Corona Extra Rams Countdown to Kickoff on the ESPN Rams Radio Network.